Today we are going to study the plant kingdom. In this lesson, we will answer 4 questions. Number 1, what characteristics do all plants share? Number 2, what do plants need to successfully live on land? Number 3, how are plants classified? And number 4, what are the different stages of a plant's life cycle? First, let's look at what is a plant. How do we classify these organisms into one category called plants? First, plants are autotrophic. As you recall from earlier lessons, autotrophic means that they are self-feeding. They do this through the process of photosynthesis, where they take carbon dioxide and water together with energy from the sun to form glucose and oxygen. Next, plants are multicellular. That means that their cells are all organized into tissues, which are groups of similar cells that perform a specific function within the organism. Next, plants have a special cell structure. Do you remember that huge cell unit we did? Well, it's coming back, guys. Here it is in the cell structure that allows us to classify plants as plants. First, they have the cell wall here on the outside, that rigid cell wall that helps it keep structure. Also, they have the chloroplasts in here that are full of the chlorophyll that allow it to be autotrophic. Also, it has this large central vacuole that allows it to store water. So, what is a plant? A plant is an autotrophic, multicellular organism that has a specialized cellular structure that allows it to function in a unique way that both allows it to survive and thrive, as well as support other life on Earth. Next, let's look at what do plants need to successfully live on land. Think about that for a second. What do they need to be able to live on land? First, they have to have a way to get water and nutrients to be able to live. They do this through their system of roots. Through their roots, plants are able to absorb minerals and nutrients and water from the soil. All of these are things that plants need to be able to survive. Next, plants need a way to be able to retain water to be able to survive on land. Plant cells hold a large amount of water in those large central vacuoles that they have. Because the amount of water in the plant cell is higher than the water in the air around them, the water tends to transpire out of the cell and into the air. So what would happen then would be that the plant cell or the leaves would dry out. To prevent this, plants have the adaptation of having this layer right on the outside called the cuticle. It's a waxy layer, waterproof layer, that helps retain the water inside the plant cell. Plants also need a way to transport the materials, including that water, minerals, and food, throughout their structure. They do this through vascular tissues, which are tube-like structures inside the plant. And these vascular tissues allow the plant to transport the materials. So, for example, we talked about the roots are in the ground and or in the soil and can absorb the water and nutrients out of the soil, but how do those things get up to the leaves? They do that through the vascular tissues. Plants also need to be able to support their own body structure. They do this with the combination of those vascular tissues and the support of the cell wall, just the natural rigid structure of the cell wall. And lastly, to be successful to live on land, plants need to be able to reproduce. So, just to recap, to successfully live on land, plants must have adaptations that allow them to obtain water and other nutrients, retain water, transport materials, support their own structures, and reproduce. Next, I'd like to talk about how plants are classified. They're classified into two main groups, non-vascular and vascular. First, let's talk about the non-vascular plant. If we take the word non-vascular apart, we see it has non as a prefix, meaning not. So non-vascular plants do not have the vascular material needed to support tall growth. So as you can see here, the liverwort, the hornwort, and the moss are all non-vascular plants. Next, we will talk about vascular plants. These are ones with vascular tissues that allow them to grow tall and far off the ground. Those vascular plants are then divided into two categories, one being seedless, like ferns, and the other being seed-bearing, meaning that they produce seeds. Among the seed-bearing vascular plants, you will find gymnosperms and angiosperms. Both of these we will talk about in a following lesson. So just to recap, plants are classified into non-vascular and vascular plants. Vascular plants are divided. So just to recap, plants are classified into two main categories, non-vascular and vascular. Among the vascular plants, you have the seedless and the seed-bearing gymnosperms and angiosperms. Lastly, we will take a brief look at the complex life cycle of plants. In this complex life cycle, plants go through two different stages, the sporophyte stage and the gametophyte stage. In the sporophyte stage, the plant produces spores, they grow into new organisms, and then it develops into its gametophyte stage where the plant produces sex cells. From there, the sex cells join together to form a zygote, which grows into a sporophyte, and the process starts all over again.